Hi everyone, this is Daniel Crawford here, and this is Bell to Bell. And of course, you don't need to know what this is a sister to, it's a, or cousin or whatever to, obviously to my podcast, Extra, for wrestling, professional wrestling, of which we are, hopefully everyone who's watching is all a fan of. So, moving on, let's get into this, the February 22nd, 2021 edition of Bell to Bell. Top 5 matches for the week, last week, which ranged from February 15th, which was Monday for Raw, through Elimination Chamber last night, 2021 Elimination Chamber. Yes. So, with that, let's get to the top 5 matches. And of course, as I keep saying, this is not in any particular order. These are just the top 5 matches. So both Elimination Chamber matches from last night, I think, make it into the top 5. Whenever there's a pay-per-view, it's kind of hard for the weekend wrestling preceding that pay-per-view for any of that wrestling to really beat a lot of the pay-per-view matches. So I was trying to be as fair as possible. There were quite a few good matches over this past week, but anyways, like I said, not gauntlet matches, excuse-moi. The 2 chamber matches from this past week absolutely made it into the top 5. Daniel Bryan, Cesaro, Jey Uso, Kevin Owens, King Corbin, and Sami Zayn in the SmackDown one, which of course Daniel Bryan won. Shocked me in the process, because I thought either Kevin Owens or Jey Uso would win, so shame on me for not even considering Daniel Bryan. But Daniel Bryan won it immediately after that match, and I consider this to be all kind of one match, at least for this consideration here. Immediately after that match, you saw Roman Reigns come down, kind of effectively cash in. Not really a cash in, but he came down, used his right, as he perceives it, to execute that match against Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan put up a little bit of a fight, but Roman Reigns won. And then, of course, after the match, you saw Edge pretty much he's going to face off against Roman Reigns by spearing him and pointing at the Wrestlemania sign. Really good moment there. Of course, the other Elimination Chamber match with Orton, Jeff Hardy, Drew McIntyre, the champion, Sheamus, Kofi Kingston, and AJ Styles. Really good match. I love the part where AJ Styles broke out of the chamber. I love the whole match, but I love that part. It really stood out in a lot of ways for me. And then, of course, Drew McIntyre winning, and then you saw another cash-in, but the official one with the Money in the Bank, after Bobby Lashley attacked The Miz, and there was a brief moment, which I didn't even consider when I was writing down my rates for the show. I didn't even consider this brief moment where The Miz was meeting with MVP. A lot of people didn't connect the dots on this, but that's what it was. There was an arrangement between The Miz and the Hurt Business to set up Drew McIntyre to be attacked, or whoever won the Elimination Chamber, to be attacked for Miz to come down, cash in the Money in the Bank, and then win the WWE title. Excellent, segments. Elimination Chambers, both of them were just awesome. A really good show overall. But also, in the top 5 was one more match from the pay-per-view for the U.S. title. Lashley, Riddle, and John Morrison. Really good match. I keep saying that, but it stood out. Riddle and Morrison teamed up a lot against the U.S. champion, Bobby Lashley. And Riddle came out the victor. I thought that if Keith Lee was in the match, I think he would have won the U.S. title, but I'm really happy for Riddle that they actually put the title on him. Just great stuff. Also make it to the list was the gauntlet match for Raw. This was to determine who was going to be the last entrant into the Elimination Chamber. And, Sheamus won it, but it was a really good gauntlet match. Yeah, so it was a really good gauntlet match between them. And Sheamus stood tall, and these kind of things get you amped up for the pay-per-view, and I'm so glad they did it. And then, of course, we also have to insert into here from NXT, the main event, Pete Dunne, Lorcan and Birch versus Finn Balor, Kyle O'Reilly, and Roderick Strong. And after the match, this chaotic match, and it was a really chaotic match, after the match, Adam Cole attacked everyone again. So, well, not except for Roderick Strong, but, it's just kind of confirmed. He didn't just have a glitch or whatever. He's a heel, and it's great. Love it. So those are the top 5 matches, and I think it's definitely well deserved. Best backstage moment of the entire week. There were a few stood out. It started with Orton's promo, but it connected right after Randy Orton gave his promo. Alexa Bliss was sitting on a pentagram in the middle of the Firefly Funhouse, and sort of saying that the Fiend is going to be reborn. I was hoping to see the Fiend at the Elimination Chamber, but it's okay that they didn't bring him back. Just great stuff here. I love everything they're doing with Alexa, with The Fiend, with Orton. To those of you who don't see an Orton versus Fiend match at WrestleMania, you're blind. It's going to happen. Like, this is what they're building towards. So it's definitely going to happen. And yeah, I'm loving it. So definitely going to see The Fiend Reborn. I'm expecting either on, like, maybe tonight's Raw. Either you'll see The Fiend Reborn, or you're going to see that Fastlane. My money's on Fastlane, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw it tonight on Raw. Best show of the week. So the top 5, obviously not top 5, but the 5 shows of the week, I'll just run them down. Raw, I gave a 9.83 to. AEW, I gave a 9.32. I'll explain that. So Raw, for starters, Raw I thought was a really good show. It really stood out in a lot of ways. Really captivated me and preparing me for Elimination Chamber. There were a lot more excellent moments than there were non-excellent moments. I think that the show was just solid from start to finish. I thought it was. But AEW, it was a good show. I liked the women's match for the tournament. I'm still very much angry that there's only one women's match a week on AEW. There should be 2 at least. Just 2. I mean, just give me 2 women's matches a week. I mean, you have a great women's division if you use it. Anyways, what brought the rate down, there probably was a significantly higher rate if it wasn't for the really stupid segment with Shaquille O'Neal and Jade. Like, I'm interested in Jade's character, but I don't care about this match coming up with with Shaq and Jade versus Cody and Red Velvet. I just don't care about it. I don't. And that not backstage, but the basketball segment, I gave a 0 to. I didn't care about it at all. It's just, I'm not into this, and they lost me. So that really dragged down the rate for AEW. So, sorry, I'm just not into it. NXT, I gave a 9.88 to, so that was really high rated. SmackDown, well, just get into NXT here. I do that sometimes. I'll jump around. So NXT, I thought was a really excellent show. Had a number of my favorite moments of the week, some of which didn't make it into this list. But one of them I will mention later on. I don't want to foreshadow too much, but the main event was excellent. Throughout the whole show was excellent. I love the stuff with like Xia Li. I really do. Soured on it like a tad, but honestly, the storytelling is still pretty decent. I was sad that we had to see Karrion Kross versus Santos Escobar pushed off to this coming up Wednesday. But I understand that apparently I think Karrion Kross has an injury, like a minor injury, so he wasn't able to perform, and that's just sad. It sucks. But either way, I'm glad that we're going to see this coming up Wednesday. But yeah, all around excellent show. Great women's matches, and just NXT oftentimes gives us multiple women's matches. And I appreciate that so much. Actually, I think there were actually 3 women's matches on NXT this week. So, kind of rubbing it in the eye and putting that thumb in the eye of AEW there. Like, the ratings may be lower than AEW, but it doesn't really matter to me as a wrestling fan because I get to see them showcase their women's division, and it is an amazing women's division. So, to hell with all of you who don't like to sit through women's matches because the women are doing great things. Like, each and every year they get better and better and better. So, you all should give them a chance. It's the fans who need to give them a chance too. Not just the promoters, but the fans need to too. Granted, there are a lot of fans out there who give the women's wrestlers a chance, but not enough, I think, still. There's a lot of misogyny out there. A lot of people who just see the women's wrestlers as just nothing more than just a TNA show. And that's just bad. That's just sad. I mean, I think TNA, which is now known as Impact, I think by T and A. I didn't mean TNA, but T and A. That's what I was saying, like a T and A show, like tits and ass. That's an unfortunate thing that people still refer in their head about women's wrestling. Like, no, this is long past the ruthless aggression and attitude eras. Like, women's wrestling has evolved significantly. And TNA, Total Nonstop Action Wrestling, they have a lot to thank for that because the Knockouts division put women's wrestling on the national stage, in the spotlight, in a whole different light, and I think it's great. But AEW need to learn from that. Look at what NXT's doing with their women's division. Give us more than one damn match a week on Dynamite for the women's division. Jeez. Tony Khan, this is on you too. You're not showing confidence in your women's wrestlers, at least by not putting them on Wednesday night. It's like you don't have the confidence that they can help you continue to win ratings. I think it's shameful, personally, as a wrestling fan. Anyways, moving on. SmackDown, I thought was a good show. There were a few parts here and there that were not as good as I wanted them to be, but it was still a good show. I gave it a 9.73, which actually, for the first time in I think a little while, Raw beat SmackDown. So, of course, as is often the case, it's usually between NXT and SmackDown for me for my favorite show of the week, but NXT was my favorite regular show of the week. But that brings us to, actually before I move on, sorry I keep doing that, but SmackDown had some excellent moments, including the continued drama with Edge and Roman Reigns, just seriously hinting of what Edge was going to do at at Elimination Chamber, as I just mentioned earlier. You know, Edge was going to choose Roman Reigns, and they really were just laying that groundwork. Like this story has been told very well, and SmackDown is the great place for it. Elimination Chamber, such a good pay-per-view. The only reason I did not give it a 10, because I gave it a 9.96, which makes it the best show of the week for me. But the only reason why I didn't get a 10 is because the women's tag team match had like a few mess-ups here and there, and it was like kind of consistent. It wasn't just Nia Jax, so I can't say that. You know, all four women I think had contributed to like the sort of sloppiness here and there. So it just lowered my rate for the match from a 10 to a 9.5. But other than that, it was a really good match. You know, I enjoyed it, but the rate for the pay-per-view was it was an amazing show from start to finish, and I elaborated that on the top 5 matches part. Such a good job. Such a good job. And it's like chef's kiss moment, you know. So, yeah, definitely enjoyed that. And if you haven't watched Elimination Chamber yet, you should. You just definitely should, especially as a wrestling fan. Best heel moment of the week. One of the reasons why Elimination Chamber was such a great show was Mrs. Cash-In. Takes that joy you saw from Drew McIntyre retaining the title and rips it away by cashing in the Money in the Bank. God, you know, like that's what the Money in the Bank is for. I think it's better suited for heels in certain cases, like Edge cashing in on John Cena. But like, you know, he did that in January of 2006, right after New Year's Revolution. You know, through the Elimination Chamber match that John Cena had just survived, he come in, cashed it in, and ripped it away from John Cena right there. Became the rated R superstar. Then we saw last night Elimination Chamber, Miz cashing in on Drew, a babyface champion, a better babyface champion in some ways than what John Cena was. At least, you know, he captivates you a little bit better, I think. You know, like, nothing wrong with John Cena, because he's a workhorse, he's a great wrestler. You know, granted, I hated him back in the day. I got tired of seeing him all the time. It's one of the reasons why I stopped watching for so long, for 11 years. But still, I really like Drew, but this is what made this moment perfect, was Miz cashing in, and just, he steals the show. Like, he stole the moment, and I love that. Fire story of the week, Edge and Roman. You can't beat the story. It's just anything that Roman Reigns is involved in right now because he's a heel has been gold, and this Edge feud is no exception. Like, I sometimes will watch What Culture Wrestling, their YouTube videos, and Simon, he comments about how, you know, a story is really well told. You know, if it can either get you really elated, like really joyful, you see this like a moment like if Edge becomes the champion again, if he reclaims that spot that he never officially lost because of his injury, if he reclaims that, it's amazing, and you're going to feel that it's going to be a great feel-good moment, like with Daniel Bryan winning at WrestleMania 30. But if Roman Reigns wins, which is also a very good, viable, and acceptable outcome, then your heart is broken. And sometimes, not all sometimes, the best stories are told that way. You either want to have your heart broken, or you want to feel like overjoyed to see the outcome that you want. It's just great stuff. And you know, this story with Edge and Roman, I don't see it slowing down anytime soon, and I think it's going to be a great payoff at WrestleMania. The new star of the week, you know, I've been really slow to come to this conclusion, but I think it's finally time to say it. New star of the week is Bad Bunny. You know, he's just stole the show in his own right. You know, he's become 24/7 champion this past week on Raw, which was acceptable in the way they did it. You know, it wasn't over the top stupid. It was acceptable, and I think Bad Bunny is okay. And no, they're not gonna put him in the world title scene with Miz. They're just not gonna do that. Vince McMahon, I think he places more value in the world title than what WCW did when they put it on you know who. So, and you know, no offense to him, but yeah, that was just a terrible decision back then in 2000. So Anyways, moving on. We're going down the line here. Best promo of the week was Seth Rollins on SmackDown. And it's crazy that SmackDown comes in ranked number 4 for me for all the shows of the week, because it had a number of great moments itself, but the best moments for the other shows just outranked it. And Seth Rollins did have the best promo of the week, I think. And it was just him basically saying, like, you just saw this beatdown of Big E by Apollo Crews, and Seth Rollins sort of used that to segue into his little speech that, like, look, this is why you need me as your leader. I need to be the leader because things need to change. Like, he's saying that, like, look, if you want things to change for the better, then make me the one that you look up to. So, a Seth Rollins program with Edge, I think, is around the corner right after WrestleMania. And I think it will be appropriate. And it will be an excellent match, I think. Money in the Bank, I think that's what they're going to do it at, and I'm looking forward to that, and I think you should too, because Edge versus Seth Rollins, that's like a dream come true story right there. Yeah, great stuff. Anyways, favorite commentary moment of the week. I cannot deny that this was my favorite moment, and if you watch it, it's great. So, it happened on NXT. And then NXT, it was the fallout from TakeOver Vengeance Day, and I remember from Vengeance Day, I had one of my favorite moments in recent memory, where Dexter Lumis kidnaps Austin Theory. And just the way he kidnapped him. So on NXT, during the during the tag team bout with Ember Moon and Shotzi Blackheart versus The Way, which is Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell, Gargano is on commentary, and they're like passing out these papers right before the match, saying like the missing signs with Austin Theory's face on it. And my favorite commentary moment came when Gargano was on commentary and he's talking about Theory, and he's like, yeah, he's 6'1", answer to the name Austin. It's just the way he said it. Gargano as a heel is like Sami Zayn as a heel. It's amazing. It's amazing because there's so much hilarity to it. They're like the hilarious heels that you need. Sami Zayn is a talented heel himself because he gives so many great moments as well. But he's like a coward. He's hilarious in that moment. Gargano's the same way. He's kind of like a Sami Zayn heel, but he's just, I don't know, I love him being a North American champion right now as well. It's just great stuff. And just like you have that kind of heel, and then you have like the bombastic heel, like who's not afraid of anything, but they know they can get their way, the Roman Reigns heel. All good stuff. So, then we come down to this week in history in wrestling. This week in wrestling history on, it's been 21 years ago since this moment. So, February 22nd, 2000, during a SmackDown taping, Crash Holly defeated Test for the Hardcore Championship and declared that he would defend the championship anywhere at any time, and he created at that moment the famous, call it infamous for some people, but for me, I loved it, the famous 24/7 rule for the Hardcore Championship, which of course, obviously was, the background noise that we have, that foundation that we have for the 24/7 title now, which is kind of a hardcore championship itself, but they don't want to call it hardcore because PG. So either way, great stuff came from that moment. So many amazing moments came from the hardcore championship when it was 24/7, and I loved every second of it. It made WrestleMania that year pretty entertaining, at least for me, with the hardcore championship. And throughout that time until they ended the rule, I think it was in 2003. I can't remember exactly, but it was a great run, and I loved it. Made the hardcore title one of my favorite titles at the time. So, with that, I thank you all for watching. Please check out the website, DanaCrawford.org, to see all of my projects, including on my podcast, which obviously includes the cousin podcast to this YouTube show, Extra Extra. So, thank you for watching, and we will catch you next time.